What is up, everybody? What an incredible intro. Welcome to our coverage of House of the Dragon episode breakdowns. Every Monday morning at 9:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, we discuss the newest episode of HBO's House of the Dragon with a selection of casual fans and hardcore book nerds, just to get the full spectrum of the entire nerdom. Can this show burn away the bad blood of Season 8 of Game of Thrones? Let's find out together. Allow me to introduce my wonderful panel of nerds. First off, we've got Matt Vader, the color commentator himself. Welcome, sir. How you doing, buddy?
It's not Saturday morning. What's going on here? I'm really confused. There's new people in here. Yes.
This is my day.
Good morning.
Good morning. Also here, our ambassador of estrogen, Jude. Welcome.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I brought my ovaries and everything.
Perfect. That's what we need. And the producer himself who created that incredible intro, Matthew Kadish. Welcome, sir.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to talk about everything that's changed from the books. So let's get to it.
Let's get into it. And last but not least, our master of ships, the sea snake himself, Charles. What's up, sir? How you doing?
How goes it? Great to be here. Thanks
also,
for having me.
a hardcore book nerd, correct?
Yes,
Yes.
particularly when it comes to the Song of Ice and Fire, yes.
All right, perfect.
Yeah,
We're gonna
Charles
need-
is also an accomplished novelist. So
Yes.
he knows his stuff.
See, I bring in the best people, guys. It's going to be great. It's going to be great.
You do.
All right.
Well, I mean, I'm here. I mean, you don't do that great. I don't know what I'm doing here.
Real quick, I just want to address the chat. We've got JT in here modding for us in the chat. We got Frank and Frank. Farnsworth. Dr. Farnsworth is here.
Oh,
Welcome,
Dr.
sir.
Farnsworth.
Dr. Farnsworth. Joker voice is also here.
He's great.
Anthony. Jedi of Chicago. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for showing up this early on a Monday morning. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode last night because we are going to be spoiling the crap out of it with a detailed breakdown.
We got to hang out with a bunch of our people last week too, and live and in person.
Yeah, that was really cool. That was
Yeah.
really
Yeah,
cool.
if you don't want spoilers, click away now.
Yeah, go now. Go now.
Yeah, my
We're
synopsis
gonna be diving
is-
deep.
My synopsis is detailed, and I'm sure the guys who have dived into the books will be ripping this show apart. So let's have
Okay.
some
Oh,
fun.
Should be.
All
It should
right.
probably be noted really quick though that we're used to talking at around a table, drinking excessively and in person. So this with this is the Salty Nerd podcast, and doing a live stream with all four of us and guests is a strange thing. So the dynamic might be a little bit off, right? Because
I
we're
think
used.
we'll
I'm
manage.
used to having Jude smack me across the head if I say something stupid. So
Oh, honey, I'll smack you tomorrow.
okay, that's fine. That's fine.
She'll keep a tally. She'll keep a tally.
I'll keep a tally, sure.
Great.
All
JT, keep a tally.
Okay.
And real quick, before we dive into this episode, we do encourage super chats. We'd love to have the support from you guys. What we're going to do is we're going to star them, and we're going to have a little segment at the end of this show, probably about 10, 15 minutes, where we're going to dedicate it all to your super chat. So if you want to say something, drop us a dime, and we'd appreciate the support, and we will get to it, and we will dedicate all of our attention to you at the end of this show. So that's how this is going to roll for the rest of this show. So stay tuned. We're going to have a lot of fun. Just got off of work 90 minutes ago. Dude, go to bed. What are you doing? All right, the first episode of House of the Dragons is called The Heir of the Dragon. It starts off with a narration telling us about the last years of King Jaehaerys Targaryen at the end of the first century of the dynasty. With no heir to the throne, Jaehaerys had two options. Princess Rhaenys, I don't know how to say her name, or her cousin,
Rhaenys.
Rhaenys, or her cousin.
Rhaenys.
Thank you. I'm
Sorry,
terrible
I'm
at
that,
names.
see, I'm that guy.
I might. It's okay. I need that. I might have to spell these things out phonetically because the way they're spelt right now is ridiculous. Or her cousin Viserys Targaryen. The throne went, of course, to the male descendant.
And just a quick thing, just to add in, one of the reasons why there was such a problem is because Jaehaerys, the Conciliator, who was probably the best Targaryen king ever, he ruled for about 55 years, and he ruled so long, his children kept dying. Like his heirs, like I think Balon, who was going to be his oldest son, he died. All these kids who were supposed to reign, they all died. So it was left to his grandkids and maybe some, Baratheons who were cousins to the throne. So that's
Jaehaerys had 14 kids.
Yeah, and they all died,
Yeah.
or
And they all
girls.
died. Holy cow.
Yeah, and so
Well,
basically,
he had one surviving son that became a maester, and so he couldn't legally
So he was screwed.
inherit the throne. Yeah.
Thank you. And so that's why they had the Great Council with all the kind of literally all the vassals, all the kind of lords paramounts come in to kind of say like, okay, here's this person. They're going to make their claim. Who are they going to be? So that's where that came from.
Thank you very much. That's awesome.
Of course.
Good to know. All right, then we have a nice little cut scene with a black screen that gives us a little bit of setup. This takes place 172 years before the events of the Game of Thrones with Daenerys Targaryen. And then we smash cut to a flight over King's Landing with the dragon Syrax and its rider, Rihanna.
No!
Umbrella,
No! Rhaenyra.
I knew that would get a rise out of you guys. Rhaenyra. So
Alex, quit fucking around.
I'm a professional, guys.
If this was in person, Joe would be smacking you.
Oh yeah, 100%. Rhaenyra. So real quick, I just want to get you guys, especially Vader, because you're the eye candy guy. How did you feel about this?
Is that what I
scene?
am? I'm the eye candy guy.
You're the eye candy guy. You love good
man.
graphics, so I'm
I
curious
do.
to
pretty
hear your
pictures.
thoughts. Yeah.
I like pretty pictures. That's true. That's what I do. Look, man, this thing, it felt like Game of Thrones, right? I felt like I was being teleported back a few years, and I just got to jump right back into this world. It's a prequel, but I don't care. I don't feel like they missed a beat here. I loved it. The dragons looked great. We got to go right back into the high fantasy stuff. It's dirty, it's gritty, it's got dragons, it's jousting. It's cool stuff, man. And it's in high drama. There's a lot of crazy stuff that goes on in this episode, and I'm in, man. I like it so far. And the opening couple minutes where they gave us the quick rundown, how many years it's back and what's going on, and here's a dragon, boom, and let's go. And that's kind of what I got. So
right on. Cool.
I was pretty pleased. Yeah.
All right. So real quick, because this has something to do with King's Landing as well, just doing this. Rhaenyra and Alicent Hightower make their way back to the Red Keep, showing off some familiar locations, visiting the very pregnant Queen Emma. The Queen discusses her daughter's duty to become a mother and honoring the role of a woman in this world instead of riding dragons and fighting in battlefields. So real quick, I wanted to say that they very much did this on purpose, and I'm kind of glad they did. But we got some really familiar locations in this. A couple of the rooms that we had visited previously, the big map room, the big spiral staircase. It did kind of tickle my fancy a little bit watching this show and seeing them walk through these areas that were like at this time, like in the height of their power. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed the heck out of it, and it looked great. Everything. Oh, go ahead.
And just to add a little more context, so at this point, Viserys has been ruling for about a decade. Things are decent. Things are great. Rhaenyra is his only child right now. She's his eldest daughter. She's the only child who's survived. Emma has had multiple pregnancies, multiple miscarriages. So, and since Rhaenyra is a woman, there's been no precedent to seat a woman on the Iron Throne. The closest they came was Rhaenys at the Great Council, but because she was a woman, we'll get to Rhaenys later, but because she's a woman, that's why it's like, and that's why she's nicknamed the Queen Who Never Was, because she had the closest claim and didn't happen. So
right,
she just didn't have that dick.
Exactly.
Oh, that reminds me. George R.R. Martin has officially dubbed this show Hot D. So we're getting some Hot D action this morning, talking about all that Hot D.
Okay.
Oh, great.
And that comes from Martin himself. So we didn't make it up. I also just wanted to jump on the introduction that we got to King's Landing. They've taken everything in the show up to 11 in terms of the stuff. Like when I was watching it, I was like, oh my God, they've gotten so much more right than the original Game of Thrones. Like the Kingsguard armor in Game of Thrones, it was like gold. and it's supposed to be white. And like
Yes.
I saw every Kingsguard. I was like, oh my god, they look like Kingsguard. Same thing with the gold cloaks. Like the gold cloaks are
actually have gold cloaks.
They actually have gold cloaks, and they actually look like how the city like how it was described in the books.
Yeah.
And so like everything that I kept seeing, like the throne room with like all the swords, like you realize like what Robert got rid of, and stuff like that. But the biggest thing was like the tournament. So like compare the tournament we got in this episode to Robert's tournament, where it was like a wooden bleacher type thing.
Compared seats.
Compared to this like huge arena and stuff, and the dragon CGI was so much better.
Yes.
Like everything in this episode just felt like, okay, this is like how Game of Thrones should look like, how Westeros should look. I was very impressed by it.
Well, and adding on to what Matt said, I completely agree. Like just going back, once we kind of got back into King's Landing and the Red Keep, it felt like visiting an old friend. It looked really great. It was great to see these familiar things, and I liked how you see, unlike with the prequel trilogy in Star Wars, it made sense that this looked cleaner because one, this was about almost 200 years before. Right. The Red Keep had maybe been finished for about, I think at this point, 50 years. So it was still like, everything was still like, and at this point, King's Landing was still kind of expanding. So it made sense that a lot of things looked really new and they didn't look as run down and ragged at that point. I will say in the beginning, though, my problem with probably the first few scenes, the lighting kind of sucked. It was a little too dark. But other than that, I thought that I agree.
Well, at least you could see what was on the screen.
I just want to say really quickly, like leading up to this, I tried to stay away from any spoilers. We have the Fire and Blood book, but I haven't started it yet. I have a friend who just finished it, and he's like, holy shit, you have to read it. So I'm going to start it now, and I promise to be done with it by the time the show's over. But like leading up to this, I was so nervous. Like even when we sat down to watch it, it was like queued up and ready to go, and I was still like finding other things to do because I wasn't ready. I was so nervous, and I wanted to like it so much. I put my phone away. I had no distractions. Every time Kadish said a fucking word, I was like, pause it. So I feel like I watched it for the first time so tense, and
talk about getting slapped around.
As soon as it was over, I was like, we need to watch it again just for enjoyment. And oh my god, it was so good, and it was such a relief to be like, I got it right.
Yeah, Alex, can we just go around and give our initial impressions before we get back to the breakdown?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Didn't we just do that?
I kind of feel like we just did.
Pretty much just did that.
And Jude, real quick, I would recommend The Princess and the Queen as opposed to Fire and Blood. Fire and Blood mainly talks about the very, very early reign of Jaehaerys when he was actually young, before he was the old king.
So everything leading up to this,
Yes. So I'd say The Princess and the Queen and the Rogue Prince, those are the novellas you should probably read.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just, I feel like even though we've kind of given like some initial reactions, I'd like to hear everyone's thoughts on like just going into it, what they were afraid of and how they felt after they finished the episode.
Well, I definitely, I was worried that they wouldn't be able to shed the skin of the season 8 of Game of Thrones and stuff like that. Like 90% of the fans out there were disappointed with that season, and a lot of people are like, why am I even bothering watching a prequel? We all know how it ends, and it ends shitty. Like I can totally understand where they're coming from, but at the same time, like this is such a fun universe to play in. I can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like I need to see where they're going with this. I've never read the books, and as of right now, I don't plan to because I want to experience this through the TV show. That's just how I roll.
You've never read any of the books?
None of them.
Oh, okay.
I tried reading the first one, but the narrator sucked, so I stopped listening to it.
Well, that's you need to read it, not listen.
Yeah, you should read it. Would you like me to read it to you?
Oh, that'd be great.
Yes.
Anyway, I just like going into this show. There's a couple things I was worried about. We've heard rumors that they were going to go soft, like it wasn't going to be as gory, or it wasn't going to be as sexually promiscuous. It wasn't going to be like the old school Game of Thrones. But this episode, like right off the bat, was like, no, this is Game of Thrones on HBO. Buckle up. And I was like, okay,
Pleasure House, right there.
Let's go. So I feel like they really put their foot down in this first episode, and they were just like, we got this, guys. Just have fun with it. So I'm trusting them at this point. This is kind of fun. I hope they can keep it up.
So I'll Oh, go ahead, Matt.
I was gonna say, so leading up to the premiere, I was very down on this show because I was like, there's no hype for it. Nobody cares. Season 8 was such a train wreck that it's kind of ruined the franchise for a lot of people. And so I was very pessimistic going into this episode. And I'd say about maybe 10 minutes in, I was like, oh my God, Game of Thrones is back. This show's amazing. It captured everything I loved about the original Game of Thrones, but without the Benioff and Weiss stank on it. That like they're like, we're smarter than George R.R. Martin. We can write better than him, and so we're just going to ruin this world he created. And it should be pointed out that the guy who directed this episode, Miguel Sapochnik, I think that's how you pronounce his name. Anyway, so
probably not, but okay.
Yeah, probably not. So he was the guy who directed a lot of like the more famous episodes of the original Game of Thrones. So he was the one who did Hard Home, which is where the Night King like went like this. He did Battle of the Bastards. Basically, all like the major huge battle scenes that the show was famous for. Like this guy directed, and he's actually a showrunner on House of the Dragons, and they're working side by side with George Martin. So like he has actually got like a very active role in the production and the writing of the show. And so, you can tell just based off of like the characterization, the situations and stuff like that. So throughout this entire thing, I feel like they did a very good job of setting the stage for the story that we're going to be getting into, because basically, for those who don't know, this is the Dance of the Dragons story, which is the civil war within House Targaryen that almost destroyed the house and led up to the extinction of the dragons. And this is just like the beginning stages of it, and they're setting up all the major players. They're setting up the landscape. And I really like that the fact that they took the time to do a prologue that kind of like caught you up to speed as to what was going on and what the landscape was. I was a little bit disappointed that this episode didn't end on kind of like a banger cliffhanger, like the original Game of Thrones pilot, where Bran gets pushed out the window. But the way it ended was, I felt appropriate, because like that's like the one thing that happened that was like, whoa, like okay, this sets everything into motion. And I also like that they kind of like wove in the long winter, the long night or whatever into the Targaryen like legacy, I guess you'd call it that, because that was something that they added to the show that wasn't, I think, in the books or anything like that.
Oh, you mean the one that's coming as opposed to the one that's behind them?
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically they refer to the Targaryen legacy from Aegon is to protect the realm from the coming night, the long night, which is what happens in the original Game of Thrones series. And I like that there's some continuity there.
All right. So what I have the whole synopsis broken down. I'm gonna bust through like a whole bunch of it so we can actually talk about the episode. That way we're not going segment by segment. So let me get through this and we'll start chatting. All right. So let's see here. The king and the High Council are chatting as Lord Corlys Velaryon, I probably didn't say that right, Velaryon, bring up troubling news from the Stepstones, a series of islands off the Sea of Dorne, that a growing alliance of free cities is taking over the islands under the leadership of somebody called Craegus Darhair. Darhair? I'm going to go with that.
O'Hare.
The king's brother, Daemon, missing from the council that day, is the leader of the city watch and has spent money on reinforcing and retraining the city's police force. Finally, a tournament to honor the new heir that will be born soon comes up. Rhaenyra can be seen with visible annoyance at this. I got to fix these words. Rhaenyra heads to the main hall to meet her uncle Daemon, who is seen sitting on the Iron Throne, our big first reveal, the Iron Throne. They talk back and forth in High Valyrian, showing a close relationship between the two, joking about who will be the next heir, Daemon or the king's unborn son. Daemon gives Rhaenyra a Valyrian steel necklace. Alicent and Rhaenyra sit under a familiar weirwood tree. Alicent claims Rhaenyra seems upset about her father's unborn son overshadowing her. Rhaenyra deflects with humor and shows off how knowledgeable she is about the history of Westeros. She then rips the page out of the book and says, "Fuck the septa." All right, let's talk about this because a lot of things happen here. So the High Council chamber little meetings that they have, these are one of the things that I really missed. Game of Thrones did them so well, especially when Tywin Lannister was in the head. Like those meetings had weight to them. This one, you could kind of see the beginnings of this descent. Like things aren't quite as good as the king thinks they are or wants them to be. So I like the back and forth that they're having. I like we're getting little drops of knowledge about what Daemon is doing at this point. He's the leader of the City Watch, and he's been gearing them up for something. He's been retraining and regrouping and spending a ton of money to reinforce them. So we're getting these little nuggets of knowledge through this exposition, I thought was really cool, and I had a lot of fun with it. What did you guys think about that?
So basically, the thing with the City Watch, at this point, King's Landing, again, they're hinting at what it will become under bad stewardship. So it was becoming kind of lawless. So he basically retrained the City Watch, made them effective so they could defend the city, obviously by very brutal means. One thing I did like about the High Council meeting was that, one, you saw that Viserys actually did attend them, unlike Robert or Joffrey. And so he was actually involved to a degree, but at the same time, you did see that Otto Hightower, who that's Rice Ifan, I'm butchering his name, so there's me. Otto Hightower, we find out a little about him. He's the hand. He has a lot of power. He's not openly heavy-handed, but he clearly does narrow and siphon access off to the king when needs to be. One thing I noticed that they changed significantly in the books was there was never a hint in the novellas that Alicent and Rhaenyra were that close. They were friendly-ish, like they never had a bad relationship until the marriage.
Don't be dropping spoilers.
Crap. Okay, it can't be that spoilers. But at that point, they never shown as super close at that point. Okay. So this
you think they're embellishing a little bit with their relationship?
Of course.
Well, in the books, so Alicent was the one who kind of tended to King Jaehaerys as he was dying.
Yes.
So like she'd be at his bedside, she'd bathe him and read to him and stuff like that. And so like that was kind of her role as Otto basically ran the kingdom until Jaehaerys died and Viserys kind of rose up to take the throne. But her and Rhaenyra, is that how you pronounce it? Rhaenyra. So like they in the books they didn't have like this early childhood relationship. No. It wasn't until they got a little bit older, which you see flashes of in like the coming stuff, that they actually like started interacting with each other.
Okay. Another thing too to add is that one thing I like that they kind of detailed was at this point in Westeros history, this wasn't the case later because I think the Hightowers are part of the Reach. So at that point,
they're Old Town. They're
Old Town. Yeah, Old Town. But I think they were part of the Reach. So at the point, I forgot their name. I'm blanking on their name. Whoever their Lord Paramount was, it was weak at that point. And the Hightowers were the most powerful family at that point in Westeros. Like,
was it the Gardeners?
Not the Gardeners.
So it was either the Gardeners or the Queen of Thorn people, Marjorie.
The Tyrells. That's it. Thank you. Yeah, because I was blanking for whatever reason. So the Tyrells at this point were weak, even though they were the Lord Paramount of the Reach. The Hightowers are still more powerful. A lot of that came from just the money because it was a shipping port. It was the Old Town was literally the oldest established city in Westeros, and at the same time, the Sept of Baelor hadn't been built yet in King's Landing. The major sept in Westeros was the Starry Sept in Old Town. So again, this family had a lot of power, and of course, Otto being the hand, gave them even more power. So
all right. So Jude, I got a question for you. I always catch you when you're drinking. I was curious how you're feeling about these two female characters, the relationship between one another, and what seems like a little bit of a chip on the main character's shoulder as far as like being put into this role that like women are supposed to be in this world. How do you feel that they're presenting this in the show so far?
Are you asking me because I'm also a woman?
I'm asking you because you're a woman.
How dare you?
100%. 100%.
I mean, I think it it probably is in line with the original story, and you know that I'm a book purist, and as long as the relationships are true to the original story, like I'm on board, and it seems logical that this would be how things were, and she's gonna have to fight for more power. So I'm on board. She's started from the bottom, now we're gonna be up here, and I'm excited to see where her journey goes. But what I really want to talk about is the little nuances between the relationships of Otto excuse me, Otto, Viserys, and his brother Daemon. So in the beginning, and I don't know what your take was, but my take was like, this is a Game of Thrones show, episode 1, and we're getting introduced to all of these characters, and it kind of took me back to like my first introduction of the original show, which is, you know, in the future from where we are now. But like who Otto is versus who Ned Stark was, and I was totally willing to just believe that here's the equivalent of Ned Stark. And then as the episode goes, he's a little more Littlefinger than he is Ned Stark.
He's much more politically savvy, yeah.
Yeah, and then the relationship with Viserys in between him and his brother, like his brother called it right at the end. He is weak. He's so wishy-washy.
Yeah.
Like going into that High Council meeting, he's talking to Otto and he's like, Gods be good. Oh, my fucking brother. Jesus Christ. Oh, my brother's right there. You know what, you guys, my brother's right. And he's so wishy-washy.
Yeah, he's back and forth.
So not, he doesn't have a strong core.
No.
And it's really interesting that this is our leader. So I'm really excited to see where that goes too.
Yeah, I love
This
the
is
back
your
and forth.
king.
Yeah, I love the back and forth between Otto. Like Otto, he obviously has the most power in the room because when he speaks up, everybody else shuts up. Like that's the end of the conversation when he says
yeah,
so.
he's talking over people.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
only when Viserys kind of has a tantrum does he shut up, because he's like, okay, I know when to mind my business.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
to
the hand is the number 2 guy, right?
yes.
Yeah, the hand wipes.
So, yeah.
While the king shits.
But also, I'm really interested to see where Daemon's character goes too, because I feel like in this first episode, he really does have his brother's best interest in mind, and the realm's best interest in mind. He's not there to be underhanded. He wants what's been promised to him, of course, but wouldn't we all?
But he's not helping himself.
True, and he's got his own agenda, but it doesn't go against, from my take, it doesn't go against like a benefit of his brother or the realm. I think he just thinks he knows how to get things accomplished in a way that his brother doesn't. So I'm gonna, I'm gonna work for him the way I do. But I think that's changing. Like as far as like the end of the episode, I think he sees that like his brother is a weak man, and he's listening to other people who don't have, the family's best interest in mind. They just want their own power. And I see that this is his villain origin story is where it's really starting. in that moment.
Yeah.
Is he a villain?
Speaking of Daemon, real quick, what did you guys think of that scene where it felt like he was creeping on his niece?
He was creeping on his niece. He was creeping on his niece.
Was he? I didn't get
Well,
that.
Targaryens always marry each
What do
other.
you do? That's not
They probably thought they were going to be married anyway.
Yeah. So I'll tell you about Daemon. My thoughts real quick. He needed a little more verve, more fun. He needed to be more fun of a character. He wasn't.
I just keep seeing Doctor Who. The
thing about Matt Smith is that Matt Smith has like 2 facial expressions. One of them is kind of like, "Are you sure? Are you sure?" It looks like he's not really sure about what he's doing. He's kind of a little suspicious or just kind of skeptical about it. And it's just like Daemon needed to be more fun. Like, okay, this is a guy. Yes, he's roguish. Yes, he's reckless at times. And while he does love his family, he's someone you want to be around. You want to smack him, but you want to be around him. And Matt Smith wasn't it. It's like he was having sex and he didn't look like he was having fun. Come on.
I just kept waiting for him to say gold cloaks are cool.
Vader.
Yeah.
Vader, you had something to say. Go ahead, buddy.
I don't remember what it was, but I really like Daemon. I feel like Daemon is like my spirit animal on this show. You know what I mean? He looks awesome in his blonde wig. I wish I had my blonde wig right now because I would look much better. I didn't watch Doctor Who. so I don't care about the Doctor Who stuff. I know there's a lot of Doctor Who fans out there that are kind of weirded out by this character. I have a feeling. It's like here he is just, banging this chick. And, it's like, I didn't think that was ever like a scene that a Doctor Who fan would ever want to see. It's like, oh man, the Doctor's getting dirty. That's really strange. But it's getting down. But no, I really like Damon. I mean, I like his look. I like his attitude. I like his name. I think I'm going to name my next dog that. Because that's a really cool
Damon Targaryen.
Damon Targaryen.
Just Damon.
Let's call him the Rogue Prince. There you
go. As far as his relationship with Denebly or whatever the fuck her name is,
Rhaenyra.
Daenerys, yeah, yeah.
It's an R.
Oh my God. You guys need note cards.
I do.
For me.
Yeah.
100%.
I didn't read these books, so I'm not trying to I'm not picking up anything that you guys did. I'm just seeing an uncle and a niece who
we're cool with each other.
They're both kind of cool together, and they want to go out and party and have some fun. Neither one of them. I don't.
They don't like their roles. They don't like the roles that they're put in.
No,
they want to go do their own thing.
The princess, she wants to go ride her dragons and see the world, have some fun. Go fight in some battles.
And I think she really looks up to Damon too, because what she
yes.
said was, "I would rather be on my dragon in battle," and he's the captain of the Kingsguard.
Yeah.
She looks up to him.
Well, actually,
She wishes she. City Watch. Sorry. You're right. I misspoke. But I think that she sees him and wishes she was born a man so that she could be exactly in his position.
To her, he's the cool uncle, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
that's kind of what I got from it.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I definitely saw. It was he was the cool uncle. She looked up to him. It seems that she has a closer relationship with him than she does her dad.
Right.
So, for sure.
I will say this.
The prostitute that Damon was with, real quick,
Lady Misery.
Yeah, she's actually a major character.
She is
going forward.
She's going to be his master of spies.
Sorry,
Spoilers.
Spoilers.
Sorry.
Gotta reel back on those spoilers, buddy. But going, in this episode, she's introduced, and you just think, oh, it's some hooker he's having sex with.
Yeah.
But
did they name her?
Forward,
Miss Syria, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But going forward, she actually has a big role to play in the whole saga. So
because I wasn't sure because
they
didn't.
all this up.
I wasn't sure because she wasn't in albino. So, but that would be expensive makeup wise.
Missaria.
Yeah.
Real quick, I want to ask a question of the book nerds, as long as it doesn't get into spoilers, and I only want a 1-minute answer. I don't need a whole paragraph. Is there any significance to that Valyrian steel necklace that Damon gave her? Is there any serious relevance to that? It's just kind of like a gift. It was just shown as a gift.
That's a gift, yeah.
Right,
one thing I also wanted to add is I completely agree with you guys in terms of what Damon is trying to do, but I feel that I like how they set things up, and especially without saying too much, how they are keeping abreast of certain things that are relevant to this Dance of the Dragons, like the whole stuff with the stepstones, the whole stuff with the free cities. That's going to play, without saying anything, that's going to play a part. That's why they're bringing it up. Because the free cities are kind of we've seen them here and there, but I think there are 9 free cities. A lot of times they're fighting with each other, or sometimes some of them will come up with an alliance. That's happened throughout all of Westeros.
Yeah, there was a lot of really good setup in this episode.
And I really loved that. That was something that wasn't really mentioned. Actually, wasn't mentioned in the books or any of the past stuff. The fact of them, Danny kind of mentioned it in the show, in Game of Thrones, where, hey, we all learned Valyrian, but it's nice to see them employing that. That was a nice little touch that they did. And I really, really liked that the Targaryens speak that to each other. It's kind of if you're, if you're a foreigner, and it's even if you speak English outside, you kind of speak your native language amongst your family. So that was cool. I like that little touch.
Are you guys ready for the next segment?
Oh, wait. We haven't even talked about how dope that chair looks.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Miles.
Holy shit.
That was so cool.
That was
so
so
cool.
intimidating.
And you know what's crazy? And this is a little bit that I do know about the books is even though this is so much grander than the one that we saw in the original show, Game of Thrones, it's still not anything compared to what's in the books. The book describes it as a freaking tower of swords. It's crazy. So even though they did amp it up, and I appreciate that, it still doesn't hold a candle to what's in the books, which is just crazy. But yeah, I love the way it looks. It looks amazing, and it looks so much more intimidating and like just dark and like, oh shit, don't mess with the guy sitting on that thing.
I liked how Daemon kind of that was another thing when Daemon was kind of just sitting there in the dark on the throne, just randomly because he could.
You guys, I did want to say I did find it interesting that the very first scene that we see with Daemon in it is him sitting on the throne.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's very. I don't know.
Jaime Lannister of him.
Yeah.
I didn't read the book, so I don't know.
Could it be foreshadowing?
That's what I was just gonna say. Maybe there's a little foreshadowing or something going on there. But I appreciated it. I thought it was a good shot.
Yeah,
so that was a really good scene between him and blah blah. So yeah.
There's no D. There's no D.
There's no D.
There's no D.
It's
Also, another thing too I liked was I thought Caraxes, Daemon's dragon, looked great. When
all the dragons look great.
Yeah. Oh my god.
The dragons look really, really good.
I
Like,
love how they're making them all different. So
they're actually doing the color because that was the thing I hated, and I get it was budget wise, but I hated in the first one is that you could barely tell Dany's dragons apart, even though they're specific colors. This one they're making an effort where you can see that.
Yeah, and not just the color, but like. It's like they're different breeds of dragon, and that's so cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's dive into the second little bit of this. King Viserys is being inspected by the Grand Maester Melos because of a small wound on his back that is seemingly not healing on its own. Otto Hightower wants this possible issue to be kept very quiet. The Grand Maester then suggests cauterizing the wound because burning a Targaryen is obviously a good option. I didn't think that made any sense, but maybe I'm wrong. King Viserys visits his wife as she bathes, discussing the pregnancy and the dream the king had that makes him certain she will birth a boy. She seems uncertain, and she will be able to fulfill his dream and reminds him of the 5 children she has lost and apologizes for not being able to give him an heir. This is a pretty dark scene when he's talking about all the children that she lost.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead if you're not done with the synopsis though.
Well, if we're going to talk about either of those two scenes, the only thing I really wanted to mention was I thought it was really weird that the Maester thought cauterizing the king would
That's
work.
what I have a question about.
Yeah.
Charles, you've read more than I have. But from what I've read, like the magic of being immune to fire, that was a one-time thing.
That was in the show. That was not in the books. So,
that's not in the books.
And the reason why it worked for Dany in book 1 of Game of Thrones, or in even season 1,
it's because of the magic, the
it was
witch,
because of the blood. It was because of the blood
the
magic. Yes, it was because of that. That's the only reason in the books. In the show, they kind of gave her this little superpower, but in the books. It was a one-time thing because of the blood magic and all that stuff. And
we think it's a one-time thing because we still got 2 or 3 books left to go.
Well,
I think Grimm actually said that that's not in the books.
And I just had another light bulb went off on me. Khal Drogo killed Dany's brother. Carol. It's Carl.
Carl Drogo.
Just say Jason Momoa.
Jason Momoa.
He killed.
Are you gonna fuck up Jason Momoa's name next?
Yeah.
Jason Momio.
Momio. He killed Dany's brother with molten gold. So I guess it's not every Targaryen, or I guess the rules are kind of not settled yet.
I mean, it's only supposed to be a one-time thing. Like when I was watching it with Kadish last night, we were kind of like headcanoning, like, oh, well, in this world, magic is still alive because all of the dragons are still alive. So maybe, but like, as far as I knew, like that was a one-time thing because of the magic that had to do with that one event.
Yes, it was.
Okay.
You're absolutely right.
Okay.
But in the show, they gave her fireproof powers, but that's just a show.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Daemon speaks to his troops, the newly dubbed Gold Cloaks, and leads them to the streets of King's Landing to find and punish anyone caught or accused of committing a crime, beating people in the streets, cutting off hands of thieves, the cocks of rapists, and the heads of murderers. The brutality is meant to send a message and clean the streets before the big tournament. I freaking was blown away by this scene, dude. Like, this is one of those things where, like, I heard rumors. People were saying that this show was going to go softer, like it wasn't going to be as harsh as the original. They put that to rest real quick, and it was this scene that did it. That was
They showed
brutal.
us. They showed us. We saw it. You couldn't miss
Yeah,
it.
yeah, they showed us
A
everything.
little bit
It
hard
was,
to watch, frankly.
it was brutal, dude.
I think it's a great idea. They need to do that now.
Vader, you would be a tyrant.
Yeah, it's no wonder that's a spirit animal, right, Damon?
Yeah, I know, right?
Damon Vader.
Damon Vader.
And the thing about it, the thing I actually really liked was going back to this scene. Of course, people in the small. Sorry, it's not the High Council; it's the Small Council. I brain farted. So the Small Council people, they had issues with it because of how visible it was. I don't think they had an issue that it happened. It was just because of the public display. But what I kind of like that they did with each of the Small Council meetings that they did throughout the show, it was kind of an escalation about people's issues with Daemon. It was much more subtle in the beginning. Then this kind of brought it more to the forefront, especially because Daemon was actually there. Yeah. But towards the end, by the end, I don't want to steal your shine, Alex, what you're going to do. But basically, by the end, it was much more open, and people were just like, no, dude, this guy sucked. Da, 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 da. So it was kind of like a nice crescendo. So it wasn't like right away. We got to see what their issues, and we got to know more Daemon as a character, especially because there was another scene that happened where he was in open defiance of Otto. I won't take that away from Alex either, but you got to see where that kind of came from, and it was well done build in terms of the story.
I think that's also really interesting, the way that they made like the relationships and the characters so layered, like I was saying about Otto, like starting off, you think, oh, that's the hand of the king. He's got to be a Ned Stark kind of good guy. And then you see Daemon, the first shot you see, they're talking about like, you should get your ass out of that chair. You're going to be like, it's treason. And you think immediately, this guy's a bad dude. And then throughout the first episode, he becomes much more layered and so much more of a complicated character in one fucking episode that I'm really impressed. And I love it when like a show right from the beginning can introduce a character and trick me. And it was just so satisfying to be like, oh God, this show's smart.
Okay. And what was interesting about that scene real quick is that Otto, so like he's been trying to get rid of Daemon for a while now. Yes. So Daemon started off as like master of laws, and then he was moved to master of coin, and then like he tried to get him kicked out of the city, and they sent him to the city watch to get him out of the way. But the thing that bothered Otto more than anything else was that Daemon was really effective as the commander of the city watch. And so he was afraid of
losing power.
Yeah, of Daemon actually getting a win in his corner there. And that's one of the reasons why he like framed it the way he did. Because technically what Daemon did was right. It was
right. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about the council meeting. The High Council thinks the brutality went too far and urged the king to punish Daemon in some way. The king is lenient on his brother and gives him a warning not to brutalize the people of King's Landing again. Otto Hightower takes a jab at Daemon and his relationship with his wife, and Daemon returns and jabs back at Otto's recently deceased wife. I feel like this kind of was a little bit of a shoehorned exposition because the way that they were taking jabs at each other didn't seem to fit the dialogue, but that might just be my opinion. Daemon bangs away at his mistress in full view of some bystanders, but can't get the job done because he's too distracted about the heir to the throne. The tournament starts as the queen begins her labor with a potential son to be born. The king of the High Coal wins a round. Bormund.
No.
House of the Coal. I'm sorry.
So Kristen Cole of House.
Yes, the Knight of House Coal wins a round. I don't know why I read it that way. My brain is on fire.
King of House Coal.
Whatever. The Knight of House Coal wins a round. Bormund Baratheon gets the favor of the queen who never was. This causes a stir. Rhaenys. I'm sorry. How do you say the Valerian? Rhaenys? Rhaenys Valerion, and then immediately loses a match to Cole. Daemon Targaryen arrives and chooses the son of the Hand of the King, Gawain Hightower. Daemon wins by tripping the leg of Hightower's horse, then asks for the favor
That was
of
dirty, man.
Allison Hightower. That was really dirty.
Yeah, how was that a win? That seems like cheating to me.
It did seem like cheating to me too.
Just shy of cheating.
I'm surprised that guy survived that fall. Man.
Yeah, that was a bad
Seriously.
fall.
I thought the horse
face?
fell on top of him.
Me too, for a second, yeah.
So I watched this episode twice, one so I could enjoy it, and second so I could write the synopsis. The first time I watched it, I swore that horse had broken both of its front legs.
Yeah,
Like,
me
I thought-
too.
It
I was
got
like,
up-
that is a waste of a good horse.
Yeah.
The show's gone soft. The show's gone soft.
So I'll tell you this without saying too much, caution, just kind of like how Massaria is going to be an important character in the story for Daemon. Well, decently important, not as important as this next one. Kristen Cole is a very, very, very important character. Huge.
Okay.
And that's probably where your nickname, you almost gave it away, Alex, what he's supposed to be. But yeah, he's a very important character, particularly to Rhaenyra, and that's all I'll say.
Okay, I'm going to finish off the tournament section, and then we can talk about that because it's a huge thing and there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
The tournament goes on as the king sees to his laboring wife. The baby is breech and is not able to be born without intervention. As the tournament gets more brutal with fighting knights, the birth also gets more brutal. The Grand Maester suggests to the king that a C-section must be done to save the baby. But this spells certain death for the queen. The king makes the choice to sacrifice his wife to save his baby. The Maester performs the C-section on a very much awake and terrified Queen Emma, intercut with Damien and Lord Cole versing each other in the tourney. Circle, sorry. Neither mother nor newborn survive. This was a brutal freaking scene.
I couldn't watch this scene.
Okay. Well, once you do the other synopsis, I'll talk more.
Well, no, I just wanted to give my thoughts on this. Like, I was watching this, and you know how, like, you can watch a TV show, and you're kind of, like, half looking on your phone, you're half doing something else, whatever, and you're just kind of casually watching it. This whole tournament scene, I was glued to the screen. It was crazy brutal.
The tournament looked good. It looked
tournament
much more
looked great.
professional. It looked much better than the first tournament.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I have fondness for that first tournament we saw in Game of Thrones, but this was so much better. I love the grandioseness. Obviously, you could tell a lot of it was CGI, but it just you could see how big and how massive it was. The splendor of the Targaryens.
When I think of a royal tournament celebrating something like the birth of the king's son, this is what I want. This is what I picture.
You know, what's funny is this tournament was so much more violent than anything we'd ever gotten in previous Game of Thrones shows that it reminded me of the Dothraki. They were like, if there's not at least 2 deaths, it's a boring affair.
Yeah.
They actually hold on a sec, Charles. They actually had an interesting line here where they said that none of these people who are participating in the tournament have ever seen actual war, and so they're just playing at war. And so like these outbursts where they're like fighting each other. This is the closest thing any of these guys have gotten to like real combat. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's so violent.
Another thing
I couldn't watch this scene. I had to avert.
Yeah, he abandoned me. He went into the other room, and I was like, "Where are you?"
I can't watch women getting cut open and screaming.
I just talking about the tournament.
Well, I mean, it was intercut with the tournament because even the producer said that basically they liken childbirth to war, and that's like the woman's thing, and so they wanted to intercut the violence of the men fighting with the violence of the women giving birth.
I thought
that scene was just so disturbing to me. Like I couldn't watch it.
Yeah,
and that's how it was back then. That's a sad thing. But the thing I also like that
hold on, Charles, go ahead, and then Vader can talk next.
The thing I also like that they did this time around, because they didn't do this in any of the tournaments in the Game of Thrones, they showed the melee. They only at times showed the tournaments, the jousting before, but this time they showed the melee where people were just butchering each other.
Okay, Vader,
that was good work.
V, go ahead, finish your bite and go ahead and say what you're going to say.
Yeah, man,
don't think I didn't see your wife just deliver coffee and donuts, dude.
I know, dude. She's a good wife. She knows her role in the relationship. I need coffee. I need coffee, woman.
What were you going to say? What were you going to say?
Actually,
she's going to come and smack you.
No, I just mentioned, man, like 2 hours ago, I really need caffeine, and she just got back home. So she's actually a really good wife.
Nice.
I don't remember what I was going to say. Brutal. I love the parallel between the tournament and the queen giving birth. I mean, because they set it up perfectly. She set it up with her wife. She goes, "This is your duty as a queen. to produce an heir for your king, and this is how we fight our battles, yada yada. I think she said something along those lines, right? I've only watched the episode once, so and listen, we all knew. I haven't even read the books, and I knew what was going to happen.
Oh yeah,
it was for sure. So,
but it was well shot though.
But it was well shot, and and it did its job because people like Kadish with weak stomachs couldn't watch it. They couldn't watch it, and
my gentle giant.
To me, that means they did a good job, right? It was brutal enough to make some people go, "Ooh, wow, that's a bit much," and that's what I like about these Game of Thrones shows. And when HBO is in their zone, man, they can kill it with this stuff. Even the birth and tournaments, clear to the orgy sex scenes that are really kind of weird, because they make you raise an eyebrow and go, "Wow, that's really depraved."
There's a scene I cannot wait to talk about. It's freaking hilarious. I was laughing out loud.
I thought it was great.
Hold on,
just real quick. Oh, are you done?
No, I'm done. Go ahead.
Okay,
go ahead.
One thing is, because I think Alex, you kind of gave it away, so I can talk about it. Even though I knew it was going to happen, it was how they did it was so brilliant and so brutal at the same time in terms of how you found out that the baby didn't survive. Because initially, anyone who didn't read any of that thought, "Oh, it's horrible," but the baby survived at least.
You know what they did well, and it kind of gave away, is like when the baby was finally born and the maester was holding it in front of the king and he was holding his dead wife there, the baby wasn't crying. And I was like, oh shit! Like that was the moment that kind of gave it away to me.
I thought they said the baby lived for a couple
hours, but
the baby cried when they first took it out, and then when he was holding it, you heard the baby start to choke, and you saw. I only caught this on second watch, and the maester's eyes were like. He looked at the baby, looked at the king, and he was like, "Oh shit!"
Oh shit!
Yeah. Also, I wanted to point out that Emma Targaryen, who's the king's wife, so she's actually his cousin, and she's an Arryn. She comes from Arryn. So like, Jaehaerys had a daughter who married an Arryn, and had her as a daughter, and then so like she is Viserys' cousin, which is why she has like all the Targaryen features to her.
Yeah, I was very curious about like the relations between, because we've known forever that the Targaryens always intermarry with each other. So I was very curious to learn what's the relation.
What's interesting about this show is that, so in addition to interbreeding between Targaryens, they also the family that is closest to old Valyria is Valerians. Who we see, and so like they're the other family that interbreeds with the Targaryens, and yet the casting in the show just makes you wonder, like, okay, like how did that work? Because they're supposed to be the ones that have like the most interwoven bloodlines. So it was a little weird.
Yeah, and another thing too, the thing I did like is that they hinted at that you hit the nail on the head. They talked a little about the Doom, which was great, because they didn't talk as much about the dream that brought the Targaryens to Westeros as much. They just hinted at it like it was a dream that brought us here, but they didn't go full into it, and that's fine. But they talked a little about the Doom, which was nice. So I like that they kind of at least hinted at that backstory for the Targaryen family, and that they, so.
Yeah, right. But in the books, the Valerians look a lot like the
Targaryens. They do.
I'm finding myself trying to get reacquainted with all these houses and bloodlines, because I'm really confused. I'm not gonna lie. I'm
just work on the names, V.
I'm trying to list like, okay, well,
they
have white hair. They have white hair, so they're related. And they're probably like first cousins, so it's like no wonder she doesn't have any babies that live. It makes total sense in my head when you look at it like that. But
same here.
Then they have the scenes with all the other people in the court and everything. It's like, oh well, that's Ned Stark's great grandpa.
Yeah.
That's what
Stark.
That's what my head's doing. I'm trying to like connect everybody that I know from the other series.
And was it Ormond? Was it Ormond or Bormund? I'm not sure.
I thought it was Bormund. I thought it was a B. But anyway, okay. I have a little bit left of the synopsis for this episode, and then we can go ahead.
Real quick, I want to go back to the birth. Okay. Because I want to make Kadish throw up. Just kidding. So the first time I watched it,
she loves to make me throw up.
It's my kink. So the first time I watched it, really hard to watch. The second time we watched it with the subtitles on, and you don't hear it as much, but you can you see her her reaction to what's happening, and she's begging her husband, please don't do this the whole time.
Yeah, it's tragic.
That was hard because he's like, we're gonna bring out the babe now, and she's like, oh, thank God, this is almost over. They're gonna help me.
Yeah.
And then she realizes that her husband gave the okay for her to be sacrificed.
That's what made it even harder. It wasn't even just that they were cutting her. It was her reaction to the betrayals. It's like,
I felt like there was a little bit of murderous intent on the side of from the Meister, right? I mean,
kind of felt like that.
Or am I crazy?
Well, but she's just a woman. He can get another wife who can produce another heir. No, I'm not being facetious at all.
No,
according to the law of the land of the time, she's just a woman. Yes, she's the queen, but she can be replaced. His heir cannot. We have to save the heir.
Viserys made that choice. He was like, you can either lose both of them or you can sacrifice the mother to save the child.
It's the one time he actually makes a choice. It screws everything up.
That's terrible.
I wonder why he's wishy-washy.
He's just a weak bitch, right?
He really is. It's amazing that he has been on the throne a decade, given now what we know by the end of the episode, that he is not strong. He is not strong-minded. He's just been trying to maintain peace as best he can. And it's probably his brother that's been doing it.
He inherited a kingdom that was basically put together, and he's just maintaining
by his grandfather. And the thing is, I look at it like this. He, in many ways, his relationship with Daemon reminds me very much of Doran and Oberyn Martell. That's kind of how Doran was actually smarter, though.
Yes.
Even though Doran had it, but Doran was smarter. He was a stronger king, even though everyone didn't see it. And the show sure as shit didn't represent it, pardon my French. But it's just like, that's kind of the relationship I'm seeing with those guys, where you have the first son and then you have the second son. And the second son is the one who's more martially strong and definitely strategic, bit of a hothead. But so that's I caught that.
That's kind of a running theme in the Game of Thrones universe, is the second, the younger brother is usually the more violent one, and the older brother is usually the smarter one.
Well, that's because us older brothers take great glee and joy in toughening up our younger brothers as we are being raised. My little brother, he can never take me, never. But I know for a fact that if he really tried, he could, because he's a mean little bastard. But
all right. Let me polish up this episode so we can finish this up. A funeral takes place for the Targaryen family. Rhaenyra gives the word. Did I say it right? Okay. Rhaenyra gives the word, Dracarys, to the dragon to burn the bodies. The king is broken. Otto Hightower calls a meeting of the High Council to force the discussion of the succession to the throne. By all rights, Daemon Targaryen is the heir to the throne, but the council fears his leadership and wants the king to name a new heir, his daughter. The king, frustrated by the circling vultures, storms out, and without naming a new heir. Otto Hightower calls upon his own daughter to ease the king's mourning in his bedchambers. Obviously, put aback by this, Alicent takes a book with her to the king's chambers and offers her condolences for the loss, remembering the loss of her own mother. Daemon is at a brothel with his men when they urge him to give a speech, and he says some inconsiderate things about the king's dead son. Otto Hightower gets reports that he called the king's son heir for a day. This outrages King Viserys, and he banishes Daemon back to his ugly wife. Daemon calls Viserys weak and warns of his council's plans against him. King Viserys names his daughter, Rhaenyra, the new heir, cutting Daemon out of the running for the throne. Viserys calls upon Rhaenyra to speak with him in front of the skull of the great dragon Belron.
No.
Balerion.
Balerion, sorry.
The Black Dread.
Balerion. And reveals to her that she will be the next ruler of the Seven Kingdoms and warns her of a coming winter that will bring darkness and death. Daemon flies off with his mistress and his dragon, and Rhaenyra has her coronation as the next heir to the Iron Throne. The lords of the Seven Kingdoms pledge their fealty to her. So this scene in the brothel, this is what made me laugh. So, he's in there, he's chilling with his boys, and they're all like, freaking speech. He stands up and gives a speech, and I can't help. I'm looking at the background because there's boobs everywhere. And I'm like, okay, what's going on here? There is a dude, dead center of the room, still halfway into this chick, and he stops and turns and listens to the speech while he's still like inserted, and I'm just like,
knee deep in there.
what is going on?
Speeches keep me hard.
literally.
That was it.
Fire and blood, literally.
It almost took me out of the scene because I'm supposed to be paying attention to this guy's speech, but I'm just like, that dude still got his dick in her.
That's how that dude felt too. I should pay attention, but
it's like
I don't know what to do.
It's like when those kangaroos, like when you have a kangaroo that has a king kangaroo that has an harem, and the smaller ones kind of sneak in and they're kind of checking to stop the check. That's kind of what it was like.
Anyway,
I just I got this image in my head of the director and all the crew behind the camera, and they're on like take 73 of this scene, and this guy, okay, no, just stay there. Just stay there. No, you
hold it.
Yeah.
They were too busy making sure there are no coffee cups in the shot.
yeah,
Oh
for sure.
man.
which I appreciate.
So I really
You know they hired a specific person to be on set to make sure there were no coffee cups anywhere.
Wouldn't you?
Nice.
I absolutely as much crap as they got, for sure.
you know the
money.
thing is too is what I thought was really smart what they did, and they did this obviously to kind of not vilify the character too much. We never saw exactly what he saw. We heard what he said. We never saw him say it. We never heard it from his mouth. So maybe he said something else entirely, and it got transmuted, misconstrued, and gotten back to him, but we don't know exactly what he said specifically.
Well, if he hadn't said it, he'd have denied it when he got called in front of his
That's
brother,
true.
No, but
I think.
I think this is the interesting thing about the relationship between Otto and Damon is that Otto probably did say it, but like leading up to it, he's not like, ha ha. He's like, yeah, like you see the emotion in his face at the funeral. He's drowning his sorrows in a brothel because that's his way. And then somebody else who's probably from Otto's team was like, speech, you got to say something.
Yeah,
And he stands up and he says something about the loss of his nephew, who was his king's heir. And I fully, this is what made it the switch for me in the episode was we have been leading up thinking, Otto's a good guy. Damon's a bad guy. And this is where it switched for me. And Otto is the one who says, he said this. And I fully 100% was like, Otto totally like made it seem a way that it probably wasn't said.
You know what's funny to me is I never felt that way the entire show. The moment we got to see Otto manipulating and talking to the king at the council, I immediately didn't like him. And maybe I'm just picking up on something, but
No,
he's a
Otto
lizard.
gave-
He's a
Otto-
lizard.
Otto-
He's a lizard.
He's
a lizard.
Otto-
Can we
Otto
talk
gives
about-
bad vibes? Go ahead,
Can we
Cage.
talk about the scene where Otto basically pimps his daughter out to the king?
yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I was going to get to that. Yes.
That felt like such a play to power that he would throw his daughter in that room, like go and flirt with the king and make him feel
she's
better.
just a woman.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was. I was like, whoa.
Well,
dude,
but
that's
he
some
was
dark
like, put
stuff.
on one of your mother's dresses.
Mhm.
Oh, that was
Like,
gross.
oh,
That was gross.
Yeah, and Otto is the one who's really on the quest for power. And if he can get his daughter aligned with the king, that's going to
direct
set him
line.
up for life.
Mhm.
Index
Yeah,
finger.
he's
somebody called him index finger. That was
Got a
awesome.
little finger. Yeah, index
Yeah.
finger.
That's
About
his
middle
name.
finger.
That's his name from now on.
index finger.
Index finger.
That's fantastic. I love
That's
that.
awesome.
That's good stuff. Yeah, that was a really messed up scene. And it just kind of goes to show, like, I think immediately I got the vibe that Otto was just playing the game hardcore. Like he's the new index finger. He's the new Tywin Lannister. He's the guy behind the curtain.
Well, you know what's funny?
Yeah, and
is-
his daughter
is
didn't
that-
look that surprised that he was gonna pimp her out either.
Mhm.
His daughter
Do
took
you know
it.
what I mean?
She
That's what she
took
was
it like
doing.
a punch.
Well, that's what she was doing with the old king. She wasn't doing that, but it was like she was kind of tending to him, probably, influence him. Maybe, hey, tell him this, tell him that.
Yeah.
And
Do
you
you
obviously
guys-
see where they went with this.
You guys
Yeah,
notice the nervous tick that she has, that she's like basically
Yes.
like removing her
Yes.
fingernails? That was pretty
Yeah.
crazy
Yeah,
too.
I did not see that.
I
I
don't
saw
think
that.
I don't think she understood what her father was actually asking of her until he said, "Put on one of your mother's dresses." It's
Mhm.
like she just kind of stops, and you see like her face change. One thing that was kind of interesting, though, I don't know if you guys picked up on this. So the scene where Viserys is basically telling Rhaenyra, is that how you pronounce it?
Rhaenyra.
He's telling them about like the secret of the Targaryen dynasty, which is basically like they're destined to fight the Long Night, and he has his Valyrian steel dagger. So I don't know if you guys noticed this or not, but that was the dagger that Joffrey used to try to assassinate Bran, and it's the one that Arya used to kill the Night King.
Yeah. I love little touches like that.
It was nice.
Cool.
It was nice to see the dagger again.
What did they call it? It was the cat's claw or something like that.
Cat's paw.
Cat's paw. Actually, cat's paw is what you call. It's a cat's paw's dagger because a cat's paw is Westerosi for like an assassin.
Okay.
Yeah. So
cool. I'm sure somebody knows.
It was cool to see that. I loved. So is this the dragon skull that they're talking in front of? Is that the same Balerion?
That's Balerion.
Yeah. Is that the same one that was in the underchambers in Game of
I
Thrones?
think so.
I think so. It looks
yeah.
completely different. Like
it looks
this
bigger.
one
Looks bigger.
Well, it's much older by then.
Well, the thing is that Balerion,
bones,
also Balerion was the largest dragon ever in Westeros.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the only person who's close is Vhagar, who we have not seen yet.
And I thought it was really cool that they have like a whole altar set up around the dragon, like honoring this, warrior from our family, and that it seems like they just keep the flames burning in honor of the dragon, which I thought was a really nice touch.
So Balerion was the one that the original Aegon the Conqueror rode, and Viserys bonded with him, and so he was the dragon that Viserys rode until Balerion died, and Viserys never rode another dragon again after that. So him being there is kind of like communing with like your favorite pet or like a lost family member or something like that.
A stuffed pet.
I have another continuity question before Vader says his thing. So in the old show, I seem to remember them saying that the skulls were in the main hall, and the Baratheons had them removed because he didn't want them to be intimidating to him while he was on the throne. So did that never happen in the books? Is that why it's not happening now? Because I feel like some of the dragon skulls should have been in the main hall.
It did, and you're absolutely right. They did mention that. They mentioned that in the show, and they mentioned that in the books, that there were dragon skulls adorning.
So it's not till after the Dance of Dragons, where basically all the dragons were wiped out, that their skulls were mounted. At this point, there aren't a lot of dead dragons out there.
Okay.
So especially ones that are owned and operated by the Targaryens. So Balerion having like his own little altar is kind of like a special thing. But then once more dragons start dying, that's when that lining the halls thing happens.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you for that clarification. Appreciate it. That's it for the synopsis. Any other closing thoughts on this episode? V, what did you think for episode 1 of the House of Dragons?
Oh my God, dude. Like I said at the beginning of the show, I was immediately taken with it. I was immediately transported back to Westeros, I felt like I did in that first season where I was just taken with this show. I mean, there's a lot of political intrigue going on here. My brain wants to know what's happening up at the wall. You know what I'm saying? But I know this probably not what this story is about. Are we going to get there? Is there? Can you? We don't ever get up there.
No, this is a civil war about the Targaryens.
Yeah, I love the characters. I didn't know what I was going to think going into this thing because of all the stupid stuff that people talk about before shows even air, but I try not to listen to that as much as I used to, and I'm pleasantly surprised. I guess is the best way for me to say it. I am completely in, and I'm interested to see what happens on. And dragons, they're cool. And I'm on Team Daemon, and I hope he kicks all their asses. I don't know what's going to happen. Don't ruin it for me, Kadish. If I will.
Hey, Charles, would you put in the comments the 2 novellas that you suggested for anybody who hasn't read or wants to catch up or haven't read those ones? And that would work for me too. Where'd he go?
I think he just left.
Oh, no.
What happened?
He'll come back.
I shouldn't speak directly to him.
Yeah, I know, right?
He's like, this
killed him.
bitch is telling me something to do. Click, I'm out of here.
I'm sorry about that.
He
I'm actually not signed in, so I can't put it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I will say them. Yeah. So
Okay.
Charles is like, I'm not going to listen to a woman.
I'm out.
Yeah, he was like, how dare
How dare
you?
you?
Especially a redheaded one.
Kiss by fire.
I did not rage quit. I'd say the most significant novella is The Princess and the Queen.
Okay.
Obviously, the princess being Rhaenyra. Okay, I won't say Rhaenyra. But the Princess and the Queen is the one. That's the main one that covers the Dance of the Dragons.
Okay.
And then the one that's kind of like it covers the same ground, but it's more from Daemon's perspective. It's the Rogue Prince, and that's mainly from him, but it covers like a lot of the same ground. If you want to get, and if you want to get the history prior to this, you want to get some more information. Fire and Blood is essentially just Jaehaerys when he was young with his wife. A lot of it. That's a lot of what it covers, the early part of his reign.
Okay.
And what's interesting about a lot of these stories that that Martin kind of like wrote up and in an ancillary fashion is that they're told from unreliable narrators. So there's like the Septon and there's like a midget fool who basically have different takes on like historical events. And so the books present both sides and they're like, you can kind of figure out which one you believe most. And and the midget fool, his name is Mushroom, and he always goes like really salacious, and like the Septon is very like prim and proper.
Chaste,
and he's like
very chaste.
Yeah, and very chaste. And so like he's more like matter of fact and serious. So it's kind of an interesting narrative device that is used there.
Yeah.
Jude, how about you? Are you in on this show? You're surprised by this first episode?
Yeah, I was very. I think to say pleasantly surprised is an understatement because I wanted to like it. I was afraid to like it because I didn't want to get my heart broken. But I feel like we're off to a really great start. I think the writers are actually like taking their time and putting nuance in and making this a really rich beginning. And I'm excited to see where it goes.
Can I ask a quick question? As far as the writers and stuff go, what is the relationship between the good seasons of the Game of Thrones series? Is there one?
Well, yes. The reason why is it covers the books. It actually fully covers more so.
So the guy who wrote this episode and is in charge of kind of like the overarching season writing.
He did Hard Home, right?
No, that was the director. So the guy who directed this episode, he directed Hard Home and the Battle of the Bastards and stuff like that. But the guy who wrote this episode, and he actually worked with George R.R. Martin in writing all the other episodes, totally not connected to any of the Game of Thrones stuff. Like he came in brand new, and he's friends with Jonathan Tropper actually. So
Wow.
Who's that?
This was Jonathan Tropper's buddy. Yeah,
Jonathan Tropper is the showrunner of Warrior and C with Jason Momoa.
Yeah, and Banshee and a bunch of other stuff. So like he kind of came in and pitched this idea. There was originally going to be a different prequel series called Blood Moon, which was like going back to like the time of the dark of the Long Night and stuff like that.
The Age of Heroes, yeah.
And that got a pilot, but didn't get picked up. And then this guy came in with his pitch, and George R.R. Martin was on his side, and so this got picked up. And he did a bang up job, I think.
Cool.
So it's safe to say that the DNA should extend through at least season 1. So
I'll tell you one thing. Basically, with the show, the first couple seasons, I mean, it's surprising that the first couple seasons of Game of Thrones are good because Dave and Dan pretty much admitted like a couple years ago that they basically failed their way up throughout the first 2 seasons. They didn't know what the hell they were doing at all. They had a chance to get like an experienced showrunner. They didn't do it. They realized, I think season 2, we can have a writer's room. It's like, where were you guys? But I'd say that the DNA was that they adhered more closely to the books. Obviously, there were deviations, but it was once they started veering far. Well, one, they ran out of runway. I wonder whose fault that is. Yeah. But they ran out of runway.
They also bought into their own hype of believing that they were brilliant writers. Yeah.
Yeah. So they ran out of runway, got high off the fumes of their own awesomeness. And once that happened, it was just, and there was some type of falling out with George. I don't know when, but I think it was either seasons 5 or season 6 where they had a falling out with George.
Yeah.
But so there's already an established beginning, middle, and end of the story they're telling.
Oh, this is done. Yeah, this story's done. This story's complete.
So there's really not a chance of us getting season 8
No,
at the end
or
of this
season
thing,
7. Or
where
season
they,
7.
where we don't know what the hell's going on. Okay,
So-
I
No,
get it.
there's an end to how this goes. Like they could
All right.
do this for like at least
I think they're planning
Depending
5
on the-
seasons.
yeah, because it's like there's going to be time jumps. I think even in this
Yeah,
season.
I mean
Because
they could easily do 10 seasons around this story because
I'd
there's
rather they
so
didn't.
much that
I'd
happens.
rather they didn't.
Speaking
Let's
of-
do 5.
I just wanted to
Speaking
ask
of
that
the se-
question for a plebe like me who wanted to know what was going on. So that's,
Okay,
good. That's good to
Jude,
know.
real quick, and then we got to get to the super chats.
Speaking of the seasons, we're gonna get 10 episodes in each season. Is that correct?
That's pretty much the standard for Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
That's cool. Not too
Kadish,
much.
final thoughts on this episode. Go ahead, bud.
Yeah, so I was very pleasantly surprised. I was not expecting this to be good, and it far exceeded my expectations. It felt like vintage Game of Thrones back when it was like at the height of its game. I'm very excited going forward to get to see the story play out because they set up a lot of stuff that makes you think this show's going to go one way, but it's actually going to veer in a lot of different directions. So there'll be a lot of nice twists and turns ahead. I wanted to shout out to Graham McTavish showing up as the Kingsguard Harold Westerling. The good old Graham McTavish from Outlander. Like every time he's just on screen, I just
Oh yes,
like
yes,
that guy.
yes. That's true.
Yeah.
That's him. I knew he looked familiar. Yeah.
He's
And there
a
was another-
sexy dude too.
And there was another character that got introduced that we didn't even touch on. His name was Lionel Strong. He's the Master of Laws on the Small Council,
Oh, yeah,
and
He's also very important.
him and his children play a big role going forward in the story. And so we were introduced to him. We were introduced to Lyman Beesbury, who's the Master of Coin.
Mhm.
He has kind of an important role. And then, of course,
He
Kristen
does.
Cole, who we kind of touched on in this. Like you guys probably don't comprehend the magnitude of importance that character has going forward.
Huge influence.
Yeah, and there's going to be like a lot of love triangles going on. There's going to be a lot of backstabbing and maneuvering, and I can't wait.
It's going to be
like
awesome.
everything in this episode set up everything that's to come. Just chef's kiss.
And I think that. Do you mind if I go?
Yeah, Charles, go ahead.
Okay,
Finish
cool.
it off.
Yeah.
And
So-
as soon as you're done, we're going to do super chats.
So
Go ahead.
I'd say that I thought that there was a lot of low key stuff. This was definitely a lot of setup. I loved going back into that world. I enjoyed that. There's definitely some things where it's like it's a wait and see how they approach certain things because some people don't know about these stories about this history. I do, and so it'll be curious to see where they go. But I like the setups thus far, where it's like, hey, there's this person. Hey, there's this person. Hey, there's that person. Doesn't even have to be a big thing. It's very low key how they introduced a lot of things. I like how they're setting up many of the potential feuds, explosions, love triangles, decision makers who will basically be very important and key to where things go. Because as you know, I mean, pretty much they told you this is basically going to lead to something not so great. The things are great right now, but they're setting up where things are going to go and how things are going to go down. And I really thought that it was a good setup thus far. I'd like to see more of Rhaenyra's personality, other than that she's late and likes to ride dragons. But I did like the potential thing that they did with her and Daemon. I like that they showed her disappointment at what he said. They showed that. They specifically focused on her reaction as well, not just Viserys's.
Yeah.
And it was interesting, kind of going back to what you said. They basically said that you kind of mentioned how wishy-washy Viserys is and how weak he is, and how Otto used what was said to push Viserys to banish his brother. And there's this, there's this great scene, and I love this shift when Viserys was banishing Daemon. And when Daemon tried to approach, and then the Kingsguard was just like, I was like, that was great. That was just such a great, and it showed you, and I was just thinking in my head, this is such a far cry from what the Kingsguard became. Like, these guys were on point. They were all there, not just because of political appointments. These guys could fight. They knew their jobs. They protected the king. And that was cool. And here's another thing too. And going back to Kristen Cole, I don't know if he was already a Kingsguard at this point. He might have been.
He wasn't.
Because
he wasn't.
Oh, he wasn't? Okay. All right.
No.
So, sorry, I won't say anything.
Again, Charles, lay off on some of the spoilers here.
No. I wasn't sure. No. I wasn't, because I was looking at his armor and I wasn't sure. That's the way his armor was. I wasn't sure.
I think he's kind of like a hedge knight at this point.
Okay. That's why I was confused by his armor. That's why I wasn't trying to give away anything. But
Charles, you did that on purpose.
I did not. But either way, it's like I like where this is going. I'm invested in it, and it's good stuff.
Very good.
All right. I just want to point out real quick before we get to super chats, Alex, that Otto Hightower, he's widely regarded as the smartest guy in Westeros, but in history, he's regarded as one of the worst hands to ever do things. Like he's basically like he was the smartest man in the world, but he was terrible at being a hand. So
okay.
All
right, guys. Well, thank you all for your wonderful discussion of this episode. So let's go ahead and head over to the super chats. Everybody in the chat, I think we have like close to 50 people watching, which is amazing.
Thank
you all very much. Yeah, go ahead, Jude.
Just because he's mentioned it a couple of times, was anybody bothered by the male Targaryen wigs?
It didn't bother me that much.
I mean, you can tell they're wigs, obviously, but I think they'll get better as they go down.
It bothered me. Here's what always bothered me about the Game of Thrones Targaryen wigs is that they always look the same even when they're having sex. That bothers me. That's weird.
They're never
Take your hair out. Take your hair out. Take your braids and your ponytail out. It's weird.
Okay.
I thought Matt Smith was giving me Orlando Bloom with his blonde wig.
Like Legolas?
Yeah.
I thought he looked great.
So
Vader was very jealous.
Backyard TARDIS for the $10 super chat. My goodness, man. Starting out strong. Thank you so much, Nick. I appreciate that. It says Matt Smith already had a sex scene with Billy Piper, a.k.a. Rose, before he played the Doctor. Interesting. I wonder, I don't think it would compare to what we saw in this episode.
Not a little bit. Not even close.
Just my thoughts.
That was
we got a lot of
Secret Diary of a Call Girl with Billy Piper. That was her show.
We got a lot of Matt Smith butt in this.
Did you guys notice how when he like couldn't finish and he was putting his clothes back on, how strategically choreographed the not the frontal was? That was amazing.
Yeah,
it was leg, towel, robe, leg, then turn around. I was impressed.
You were looking for that D, weren't you? You were like, I gotta
see. You're getting as bad as Kadish.
Are they going to show it? Are they going to show it?
Well, I think Matt Smith might have been a little uncomfortable. I didn't read the full interview, but he might have been a little uncomfortable with the amount of sex scenes. So,
probably.
I wonder if he'll have more throughout the seasons, like because he's one of the main characters.
Well, they were also very strategic and not showing any bush in that.
They were actually
as well.
Equal opportunity covering.
Yeah, that's all right. I'm all right with that. That's fine.
Yeah.
They did. They made up for it at the brothel.
Wait, I do have a question about the brothel scene, really quick.
Yeah.
Did we get a trifecta? There was no little people there.
Well, there's no rape there. Everybody's consenting.
There's no rape there
dwarfs?
either.
You mean no dwarfs?
There's no dwarfs. And there's no rape. So we're only 1/3 of the way there, buddy.
I thought there was going to be at least. I thought we'd get a trifecta out of the brothel scene.
Well, after the smashing they got in the Game of Thrones over the rape scenes, I don't think they're going to put any more.
No,
of those
they're going to avoid those.
Jude, I'm going to get smacked now tomorrow. Thanks, guys. All right,
that's 2 smacks for Vader. All right, the next super chat, another one from Nick, $5. Thank you, sir. Matt Smith has a lot of facial range. He has a way of going from man-child to looking ancient. That is uncanny.
That's something I mentioned to Kadish while we were watching this. I was like, there's something about Matt Smith's face in this that just, it looks petulant.
Doesn't have eyebrows. He
doesn't. He's got a weird look. He's got an odd looking face like Benedict Cumberbatch.
Does he have a good? What about his O face? You think
Well, we didn't see that. He got frustrated.
Yeah, maybe in the next episode.
Maybe the next one.
He's got to do it on the back of a dragon to really get there.
I could see him doing that.
I'll say as good as he was in this episode, his performance didn't come near to the brilliance of Morbius. So,
I still haven't seen that.
I haven't seen that yet.
There's a little dance scene there. Yeah.
Oh gosh. All right, final call for super chats. People in the chat room, thank you guys so much for being here. Really appreciate it. We're gonna take another 2 minutes or so to see if anybody else wants to drop us a dime, and then we're gonna polish out and get out of here. Matt Vader, while we're waiting for that, why don't you let people know what you guys got planned for your live streams on Saturdays?
Saturday we're talking about whatever is fun, topical, and newsworthy. But I think, and then we're also going to be going into the other show with the dragons and swords and stuff in it from Amazon. What's that one on Amazon?
The
Rings
Rings
of
of
Power.
Power.
Yeah, yeah. I hope. That's
We're
all
also
I'm
going to be
gonna say.
covering Andor.
Andor when
Star
it
Trek.
comes out. For some reason, Kadish has decided we're just going to like go down this hole of mediocrity and hope.
Andor actually looks half decent.
Yeah, it looks pretty good. I'm looking forward to.
It actually looks like it looks like a film.
I
Yeah,
can't.
it does.
I can't
I'm looking
wait.
forward to be baited and switched.
I
Yeah,
can't
me
wait
too.
for the online Twitter war between Game of Thrones fans and Lord of the Rings fans fighting over whose show is better. It's gonna be amazing.
I feel bad
be
for.
good, man.
I'm not excited for that one.
I don't think there's going to be much of a fight.
No,
to
I
be
feel bad.
honest.
I feel bad for the Wheel of Time people. out
Oh,
there.
they're gone.
Oh, that's
Aw.
trash. Yeah. So this Saturday we have the ladies
Force of Light.
Natalie and Michelle coming from the Force of Light.
Mhm.
Oh, speaking of, I'm wearing
and
their
maybe
shirt.
another person. Yeah.
Cancel yourself. Nice.
Yeah.
And
dig
yeah,
it.
that's what we got going on. We're
All right,
just
cool.
doing our Saturday thing.
Right
10 a.m.
on.
every Saturday morning right here.
Cool. All right, Jude, you got some stuff in the works too. You got an audiobook coming out soon. Is that correct?
I do. It's very dragon heavy as well. I'm
Nice.
working on an audiobook right now. It's called Trial by Fire. I am playing Tennigan Filter, a young woman who is a servant, and she has to fight her way up to power to become a leader of dragon riders.
nice.
So that's coming out in the next couple of months.
Right on. Cool. Another super chat from Fluffy Panda, $5. Thank you so much. It's very generous. Matt Smith was the saving grace of this show. It was okay, but I'm curious. Watchers on the wall after this. First time in 3 years I've watched Game of Thrones. I am curious how many people are gonna like watch this show who maybe not have dived into Game of Thrones and like go back and like watch the Game of Thrones show like alongside it or after they're done with this. I'm
You should probably quit at season 5.
yeah, probably stop.
So I look at it. So they had to hit a home run with this first episode.
Yeah.
Because and they knew that, right? I mean, there are so many people that are still pissed off about season 8 that I mean, I can't write a comment in Twitter. I mean, I know Twitter sucks and it's not with real people.
It's Twitter,
But
yeah.
I can't make a comment about this show without being inundated with people saying F Game of
Dude.
Thrones, I'm out. I'm never gonna watch
It's like
it again.
it's like an ex who's still bitter over a breakup.
And I just gotta
Yeah.
say, you people that are like that, you're doing yourself a disservice. You gotta watch this episode because it might bring you back. It's really pretty good.
I went on I was on Twitter and I looked up the trailer on the official Game of Thrones Twitter account, verified and all that stuff. And I clicked on the comments, and like 90% of the comments are, "I'm not coming back to this franchise, you guys." I was like, Jesus Christ,
But you
guys.
still
they have to
follow them
tell-
on Twitter.
Tell you
Yeah.
that they're doing it on Twitter for clout.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you guys so much for the super chats. We got to get out of here. We've got a hard out for 11 o'clock. This is going to be every single week, guys. Every week, 9:30
Every
a.m.
Monday.
on this channel on Monday. We will be discussing the newest episode of the House of the Dragon. So thank you guys for being here. Really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the coverage, and we look forward to seeing you guys all next week
Yeah.
with a fresh new epised.
Real quick, Charles, where can they find your books?
They can find. Oh yes, you can find me on Amazon at CCEKK, and you can look for the Pantheon Saga or the Star Brigade series. And you can
Excellent.
also find me on Instagram and the Facebook.
Cool.
Sorry,
And
What's
a
your- what's your
lot of your
Instagram?
books are like superhero.
Yes, there's superhero fiction,
yeah, cool.
and the superhero fiction. Basically, look at it like this: it's like MCU between Phase 1 and 3, not Phase 4, but Phase
Okay.
1 and 3, and just it's fun. It's good stuff. It's adults. It's not as chaste as the MCU, so there's that, but it's not like full on superhero harem. It's actually
like somewhere between Marvel
Yes.
and The Boys.
yes, thank you. Between Marvel
Yeah,
and the
great,
boys, between the
great.
MCU and the boys, it's the best way to
Okay.
describe it. Yes.
Cool. Right on. All right, Kadish, final takeout or what? I don't know how to say this. Just tell them where they
Just
can
say
find
goodbye.
Yeah. You can find me at Matthew Kadish on Twitter. And I was one of those people who was bashing this show until I saw it. And then I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm on board.
you. Cool. Right on. All right, everybody. Thank you guys so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Catch you next Monday, 9:30. Stay salty, my friends.